Part 1. The Tribute. The Grand Hall of Velthar stretched higher than any building on Earth. Crystal pillars reached toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Emperor Daesung sat on his throne, a massive structure carved from a single piece of black stone that gleamed like oil in water. Around him, nobles from 12 different star systems watched and waited. Today was important. Today the Emperor would choose a human. Princess Hana stood among the crowd, her blue skin pale with worry. She had tried to speak with her father before this ceremony. She had begged him to reconsider, but he would not listen. He never listened to her concerns about humans. The massive doors opened. 2 guards entered, and between them walked a human male in chains. Hana felt her breath catch in her throat. The human was tall by his species standards, though still shorter than most Veltharians. His body carried scars that told stories of violence and survival. His black hair was cut short in a military style, but it was his eyes that made Hana's blood run cold. They were dark and empty, like looking into the void of space itself. Yet somehow they burned with something terrible and patient. This was Taimin, a soldier from Earth, a survivor of the Battle of Seoul. "Approach," Emperor Daesung commanded. The guards pushed Taimin forward. His chains rattled with each step. He did not bow. He did not lower his eyes. He simply stood there staring at the Emperor with that same cold, burning gaze. The nobles whispered among themselves. Some laughed at the human's defiance. Others admired his spirit, the way one might admire a dangerous animal in a cage. "This human," announced General Hyunwoo, stepping forward with a data tablet, "fought in 17 major battles. He survived when his entire unit was destroyed. He has 43 confirmed kills of our soldiers. He is the perfect specimen of human warfare." The Emperor nodded, pleased. "Earth has produced some interesting creatures. They fight like cornered animals, desperate, violent, without honor or strategy." Taimin's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "Your Majesty." Hana found her voice and stepped forward. "Please, I must speak." Emperor Daesung looked at his daughter with surprise. Hana rarely spoke in court gatherings. She was the quiet one, the scholar who spent her time in libraries rather than political halls. "Speak, daughter." "Please, father, not that human." The words burst from her before she could stop them. Every eye in the hall turned to her. "Choose another, any other human. But not this one." Silence filled the grand hall. Then slowly the Emperor began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed off the crystal pillars. Soon other nobles joined in. "My sweet daughter," Daesung said with amusement in his voice, "what could you possibly fear from this creature? Look at him. He is bound. He is defeated. His world belongs to us now. That is exactly why we should fear him," Hana said urgently. She could feel her hearts beating fast in her chest. "I have studied Earth's history. I have read their stories. Humans are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose." "Stories," General Hyunwoo said with contempt. "The princess reads too many primitive tales. This human is flesh and bone, nothing more. The neural collar will control him perfectly." Hana looked at Taimin. For just a moment their eyes met. She saw no plea for help there, no hope, only that patient, burning darkness. It was the look of someone who was already dead inside but whose body refused to stop fighting. She had seen that look before, in her studies of Earth. Ancient warriors called samurai had looked that way before committing their final acts. Soldiers in something called World War II had that look in the photographs before impossible battles. It was the look of someone who had accepted death but would take as many enemies with them as possible. "The decision is made," Emperor Daesung declared. "This human, Taimin of Earth, will serve as ceremonial guard to Princess Hana. He will accompany her at all times. He will be a living reminder of humanity's place in our empire." "Father, please." "Enough!" The Emperor's voice was sharp now. "You disappoint me, Hana. You are a princess of Velthar. You should not cower before a defeated enemy. Perhaps having this human close will teach you strength." Hana felt her objections die in her throat. There was no point in arguing further. When her father used that tone, the matter was settled. The ceremony continued. A neural collar was fitted around Taimin's neck. It was a sophisticated piece of technology, capable of delivering pain or paralysis with a single command. The control device was given to Hana. "This collar will ensure obedience," General Hyunwoo explained to her. "If the human disobeys, simply press this button. If he attempts to harm you, The collar will activate automatically. He is completely under your control. Hana took the control device with trembling fingers. She looked at Taemin again. The collar sat around his neck like a mark of shame, but his expression had not changed. He stood straight, chains removed now that the collar was in place. "Do you understand your role, human?" General Hyunwoo asked. Taemin's voice was rough like gravel grinding together. "I understand that I'm a trophy. A pet for the princess to parade around." Several guards reached for their weapons at his tone, but the emperor raised a hand to stop them. "Good," Daesung said. "At least this one is honest. I prefer that to false submission." He turned to Hana. "Take your new guard, daughter. Train him well." The ceremony ended. Nobles dispersed, chattering about the entertainment to come from watching a human trying to serve royalty. General Hyunwoo watched with a calculating expression. He had wanted to marry Princess Hana for years, binding his military power to the royal bloodline. Now there would be a human constantly at her side. The humiliation of it made his blood boil. Hana led Taemin from the grand hall. Neither spoke as they walked through the palace corridors. Servants and guards stared as they passed. A princess walking with a human guard was a strange sight indeed. Finally, they reached Hana's quarters. She opened the door and gestured inside. "These will be your rooms," she said quietly, pointing to a door off the main chamber. "You will have everything you need." Taemin looked at the luxurious space. Soft furniture, art on the walls, a view of Velthar's 3 moons through a massive window. It was beautiful. It was also a cage. "Why did you object?" he asked suddenly. Hana looked at him, surprised by the question. "Because," she said carefully, "I know what humans are capable of. Not just in war, in everything. My father sees you as defeated. But I see something else." "And what do you see, princess?" Hana met his dark eyes and told him the truth. "I see someone waiting." Taemin said nothing, but the smallest hint of something flickered in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or acknowledgement. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold, patient mask, and Hana knew with absolute certainty that she had been right to be afraid. 3 weeks had passed since Taemin arrived at the palace. 3 weeks of silence and cold distance between the princess and her human guard. Every morning, Taemin woke in his luxurious prison. The rooms they had given him were larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The bed was soft enough to drown in. Food appeared 3 times a day, prepared by unseen servants. Everything was perfect. Everything was controlled. The neural collar never left his neck. He had tried to examine it the first night, running his fingers along its smooth surface, looking for weaknesses. The moment his fingers applied too much pressure, pain had shot through his body like lightning. He had learned quickly not to try again. Princess Hana avoided him as much as possible. When protocol demanded his presence, she would communicate through her attendants. "Tell the human to wait outside. Inform the guard we leave in 10 minutes. She never spoke directly to him unless absolutely necessary. Taemin did not mind. He preferred the silence. It gave him time to watch, to learn, to wait. The palace was massive, a complex maze of corridors and chambers. He memorized every hallway he walked through, every guard post he passed. He noted shift changes and security protocols. Old habits died hard. Even as a prisoner, he could not stop being a soldier. General Hyunwoo visited often. He would arrive at Hana's quarters with gifts and compliments, trying to win her favor. Each time he would look at Taemin with barely concealed disgust. "Still keeping your pet, princess?" he asked during one visit. "He is my guard as my father commanded," Hana replied coolly. "A human guard," Hyunwoo laughed. "What protection could such a creature possibly provide? Our smallest child could overpower him." Taemin stood by the door, still and silent. He had learned that Veltharians were stronger than humans, it was true. They were taller, their bones harder, their muscles more dense. In a straight physical contest, a human would lose. But Taemin had not survived the war through straight contests. He had survived through speed, tactics, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary. Hyunwoo stared at him. "What do you think, human? Do you believe you could protect the princess from a real threat?" "I think," Taemin said slowly, "that underestimating your enemy is the fastest way to die." The general's face darkened. His hand moved toward the weapon at his belt. "That is enough," Hana said sharply. "General, thank you for your visit, but I have studies to attend to." Hyunwoo left, but not before giving Taemin a look that promised future consequences. After he was gone, Hana finally looked at Taimin directly. It was the first time in days. "You should not provoke him," she said. "He asked a question." I answered honestly. "Honesty can be dangerous here." "Everything is dangerous here, Princess." They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Hana turned away, dismissing him with a wave of her hand. But something had shifted between them. Some wall had cracked just slightly. 2 days later, Hana had to attend a diplomatic garden party. Protocol required Taimin to accompany her. He walked 3 steps behind, wearing the ornate armor they had given him. It was lighter than his combat gear had been, but felt heavier somehow. It marked him as property, as a possession. The garden was beautiful in an alien way. Plants with crystalline leaves chimed softly in the breeze. Flowers that glowed with bioluminescence lined the pathways. Nobles gathered in small groups, drinking and gossiping. Taimin saw how they looked at him, curious, amused, some disgusted. To them, he was an exotic animal on display. Hana moved through the crowd with practiced grace, speaking to diplomats and nobles. She played her role perfectly, the polite princess, interested but not too interested, friendly but maintaining proper distance. They were near one of the fountains when Taimin heard it. A small sound, barely audible over the conversation and music, a soft chirping, desperate and afraid. He stopped walking. Hana noticed immediately and turned. "What is wrong?" Taimin did not answer. He moved to the fountain and looked down into the water. There, struggling against the current from a decorative spout, was a small creature. It looked like a bird, but with 4 wings instead of 2. Its feathers were soaked, weighing it down. It was drowning. Without thinking, Taimin reached into the water. His hands, scarred from years of handling weapons, moved with surprising gentleness. He scooped the creature up and lifted it from the fountain. The creature chirped weakly, shivering in his palms. "What are you doing?" an older noble asked, approaching with a frown. "That is just a garden pest. Let it drown." Taimin ignored him. He examined the creature carefully, making sure it was not injured. Then, with slow movements, he used the edge of his sleeve to dry its feathers. The creature stopped shivering and looked up at him with large, luminous eyes. After a moment, it chirped once, spread its 4 wings, and flew away into the crystal trees. Taimin stood and turned back to the path. Every noble within sight was staring at him. He realized he had created a scene. He had acted without permission, without orders. He waited for the pain from the collar, for Hana to activate it as punishment. But it did not come. Hana was staring at him with an expression he could not read. Surprise? Confusion? Something else? "Come," she said quietly. "We should continue." They walked in silence to the next part of the garden. But Taimin noticed that Hana kept glancing at him, as if seeing him for the first time. That night, something unprecedented happened. Hana dismissed all her attendants early. Then she knocked on the door to Taimin's quarters. He opened it, surprised to see her standing there alone. "May I enter?" she asked. It was such a strange question. She owned him. She could enter wherever she wished. But she was asking permission. Taimin stepped aside. Hana entered and sat in one of the chairs. She looked uncomfortable, as if unsure how to begin. "That creature today," she finally said. "Why did you save it?" Taimin remained standing. It needed help. But it was just an animal. A pest, as Lord Jaehyun said. Does that mean it deserved to die? Hana studied him carefully. "Tell me about Earth, about your home before the war." The request surprised him. In 3 weeks, no one had asked about his life before. To them, he had not existed before he became their prisoner. "Why do you want to know?" "Because," Hana said slowly, "I realized today that I have been treating you like that creature in the fountain, seeing you as something less than what you are." Taimin was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he began to speak. "I had a sister, Jiwoo. She was younger than me by 5 years. She wanted to be a teacher." His voice was rough with emotion he rarely showed. "When your ships came to Busan, she was at a school. She was helping children evacuate when the building was hit." Hana felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I am sorry. Your people destroyed 17 cities in the first week of the war. Millions died. But we are the primitives. We are the ones who fight without honor." "That is not what I believe," Hana said quietly. "Then what do you believe, princess?" She met his eyes. "I believe my people made a terrible mistake. I believe we saw your world and wanted it, so we took it. I believe we told ourselves you were less advanced, less civilized to justify what we did. And I believe," her voice dropped to almost a whisper, "that we created something we do not understand and cannot control." "And what did you create?" Warriors with nothing left to lose. Taemin stared at her. For the first time since arriving at the palace, something like respect flickered in his expression. "You are smarter than your father, princess." "Being smarter than my father is not difficult," Hana said with bitter humor. Then she stood. "I should return to my chambers. But Taemin, I want you to know something. I will not treat you as a possession anymore. You are a person. You deserve to be treated as one." She walked to the door, then paused. "And thank you," she added. "For what?" "For showing me that gentleness and strength can exist in the same person." After she left, Taemin stood alone in his luxurious prison. For the first time since arriving on Velthar, he felt something other than rage or emptiness. He felt the faint, dangerous stirring of hope. The relationship between Hana and Taemin changed after that night. It was not friendship, not yet, but it was something closer to mutual respect. She spoke to him directly now, asking his opinions on matters she would never have considered before. He answered honestly, no longer seeing her as just another captor. General Hyunwoo noticed the change. He watched from shadows and corners as the princess and her human guard walked together through palace halls. He saw how she listened when Taemin spoke. He saw how the cold distance between them had warmed into something resembling trust. It made his blood boil. Hyunwoo had spent years positioning himself to marry into the royal family. He had won battles, gained influence, and eliminated rivals. Princess Hana was supposed to be his prize, his path to ultimate power, but she had always kept him at a distance, polite but uninterested. Now she spoke more words to a human slave than she ever had to him. The situation was intolerable. In his private chambers, Hyunwoo began making plans. If he could not win Hana's favor, he would remove the obstacle standing between them. More than that, he would turn this situation to his advantage. He would prove once and for all that humans were dangerous animals that needed to be exterminated, not kept as servants. He began searching for tools to use, and he found them in the lowest levels of the palace. There were more than 200 humans working in the palace. Most were servants taken from Earth after the war and brought to Velthar as laborers. They cleaned, cooked, maintained the gardens, and did countless other tasks that Veltharians considered beneath them. Among these servants, a small group had formed in secret. They called themselves the Earth's Memory. They were not soldiers or trained fighters. They were teachers, engineers, farmers, and parents who had lost everything. But they shared one common goal: revenge. For months they had been planning, stealing small items, gathering information, waiting for the right moment to strike at the heart of the empire that had destroyed their world. General Hyunwoo discovered their plot through his network of spies. Instead of stopping them, he made a different choice. He would let them proceed with their assassination attempt on Emperor Daesung. He would even help them, providing weapons and access they could never obtain on their own. Then, at the critical moment, he would stop the attack and blame it on human savagery. The Emperor would have no choice but to order the execution of every human in the Empire, including Taemin. It was perfect. Hyunwoo would be the hero who saved the Emperor's life. The humans would be eliminated. And Hana would finally see that her human guard had been dangerous all along. But Hyunwoo made one critical mistake. He underestimated Taemin. Taemin had been watching the palace for weeks. He noticed things that others missed. Small details, patterns that did not fit. He saw servants moving at odd hours. He noticed supplies going missing from storage rooms. He heard whispers in languages he understood but that Veltharians could not speak. Something was wrong. Something was coming. He began investigating on his own during the few hours when Hana was occupied with duties that did not require his presence. He followed servants. He listened at doors. He pieced together fragments of conversation. What he discovered made his blood run cold. There were humans in the palace planning an attack. They were going to try to kill the Emperor during the upcoming anniversary celebration. It would be a suicide mission. They would all die. And worse, it would give the Veltharians exactly the excuse they needed to wipe out what remained of humanity. Taemin understood the desire for revenge. It burned in his own chest every day, but this was not the way. This would not free Earth, it would ensure humanity's extinction. He had to stop it. But he could not do it alone. For the first time since arriving at the palace, Tae-min chose to trust someone other than himself. He found Hana in her study, reading through diplomatic reports. She looked up as he entered without knocking, surprise and concern on her face. Tae-min, what is wrong? We need to talk, he said, closing the door behind him. And you need to listen carefully because lives depend on it. He told her everything. About the servants. About the whispers. About the assassination plot he had uncovered. Hana listened in growing horror. Are you certain? She asked when he finished. I have been a soldier for 15 years, Princess. I know what an attack looks like before it happens. I can feel it in the air. Then we must tell my father immediately. We must warn the palace guard. No. Taemin's voice was sharp. Think about it. An assassination attempt by humans? What will happen? Hana went pale as understanding dawned. They will use it as an excuse. Every human in the Empire will be executed, Taemin finished. This attack cannot happen. But we also need to understand why it is happening. Someone provided these servants with information. Someone gave them access they should not have. Someone wants this attack to occur. But who would want such a thing? Before Taemin could answer, a sound reached them from the corridor outside. Footsteps, many of them. Moving quickly. Taemin moved to the window and looked down at the courtyard below. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Servants were moving in groups carrying concealed packages. They were moving toward the grand hall where preparations for the anniversary celebration were underway. It is happening now, he said. They moved up their timeline. Hana stood, her face set with determination. Then we stop them now. Your Majesty, wait. But she was already moving toward the door, pulling it open. Taemin followed, his mind racing through possibilities and plans. They moved quickly through the palace corridors. Hana used her authority to access restricted areas, to move past guards without question. Taemin used his training to spot the signs of the coming attack. Together they began to track the conspirators. In a service corridor near the grand hall they found them. 8 humans dressed in servant clothing carrying packages that Taemin recognized immediately as improvised explosives. Stop, Hana commanded. The servants turned, shock on their faces. One of them, a woman named Mi-sun who worked in the kitchen, stepped forward. Princess, she said in accented Veltharian, please do not interfere. This is not your concern. I cannot let you do this, Hana said. Please put down those weapons. Weapons? Mi-sun laughed bitterly. Your people used weapons on our cities. You used weapons on our children. This is justice. This is suicide, Taemin said, stepping forward. He spoke in Korean, the language of their lost home. And it is exactly what they want you to do. The servants stared at him in shock. They had known there was another human in the palace, but they had never approached him. He was the princess's guard, a collaborator in their eyes. You wear their collar, one of the men said with contempt. You serve them. I survive, Taemin corrected. And I am trying to save the rest of you from doing something that will doom our entire species. Better to die fighting than to live as slaves. I agree, Taemin said. But this is not fighting. This is playing into someone else's plan. Tell me, how did you get those explosives? How did you learn the Emperor's schedule? How did you gain access to restricted areas? Mi-sun's expression flickered with uncertainty. We have been planning for months. We stole what we needed. You could not have, Taemin interrupted. I have been in this palace for weeks. I know the security measures. Someone helped you. Someone wanted you to succeed just enough to justify genocide. The truth of his words hung in the air. The servants looked at each other, doubt spreading among them like a disease. Then, from the shadows at the end of the corridor, slow applause echoed. General Hyunwoo stepped into view, accompanied by 6 elite guards. Very clever human, he said. I did not expect you to figure it out so quickly. Hana stared at him in horror. Hyunwoo? You did this? You armed them? I gave them an opportunity, Hyunwoo said with a smile. An opportunity to show their true nature. And now they will serve their purpose anyway. Guards kill them all, the humans and the princess. What? Hana gasped. You have become corrupted by this human pet of yours, Hyunwoo explained calmly. It is unfortunate but necessary. You will die in the attack. I will heroically attempt to save you but arrive too late. Your father in his grief will name me his heir, and the humans will be eliminated as a threat. The guards raised their weapons. Taemin looked at Hana. She looked at him. In that moment, A decision was made without words. Hana reached up and touched the neural collar around Taemin's neck. Her fingers found the release sequence her father had shown her. The emergency override that only royalty knew. The collar clicked and fell away. For the first time in weeks, Taemin stood free of restraints, and General Hyunwoo realized, too late, that he had made a terrible mistake. "Kill them!" he screamed, but Taemin was already moving. The first guard never saw Taemin move. One moment the human was standing still. The next moment the guard was on the ground, his weapon in Taemin's hands. Veltharians were stronger than humans. They were taller and had harder bones. But they were also slower. Their bodies, evolved on a high-gravity world, were built for power, not speed, and they had spent generations as the dominant force in their region of space. They had forgotten what it meant to fight against someone who was desperate. Taemin had not forgotten. He moved like water, flowing around attacks before they could land. The stolen weapon barked once, twice. 2 more guards fell. The corridor erupted into chaos. "Protect the princess!" Taemin shouted to the human servants. They stared at him in shock, but Mi-sun recovered quickly. She and the others formed a protective circle around Hana, using their own bodies as shields. General Hyunwoo backed away, rage and disbelief on his face. "Kill him! He's just one human." The remaining guards advanced. They were elite soldiers, trained and experienced. But they had never fought anything like Taemin. They had never faced a human who had survived Earth's worst conflicts. Taemin used every advantage he had. He was smaller, so he stayed low. He was faster, so he never stopped moving. He knew human weapons from the war, so he used the stolen rifle with deadly precision. When ammunition ran out, he discarded it and picked up a fallen guard's blade. The weapon was too large for him, built for Veltharian hands. He used it anyway. 2 more guards fell. Then 3. The corridor was filled with the sounds of combat and the smell of blood. Hyunwoo saw his plan crumbling. He turned and ran, disappearing into the palace depths. Taemin let him go. His priority was protecting Hana and the others. He could hunt the general later. The last guard, seeing his companions fallen, raised his hands in surrender. Taemin kept the blade pointed at him but did not strike. "Go," he said in Veltharian. "Leave this place. Tell your commanders what happened here." The guard fled. Taemin turned to find Hana and the human servant staring at him. In the space of less than 2 minutes, he had defeated 6 elite Veltharian guards. They had just witnessed what humans were capable of when unleashed. Mi-sun spoke first, her voice shaking. "What are you?" "A soldier," Taemin said simply. "Nothing more." "You saved us," another servant said. "I saved myself," Taemin corrected. "You were just in the way." But there was no harshness in his voice. Just exhaustion. Hana stepped forward. "We need to warn my father. Hyunwoo will try to spin this his way. We need to reach the Emperor first." "The celebration," Taemin said. "It is starting now. Your father will be in the Grand Hall with hundreds of nobles and diplomats. Then that is where we go." They ran through the palace corridors. Hana used her royal authority to bypass security checkpoints. The human servants followed. No longer enemies, but temporary allies united against a common threat. The Grand Hall was already filled with guests when they arrived. Emperor Daesung sat on his throne, dressed in ceremonial robes. Nobles from across the empire mingled and celebrated the anniversary of Velthar's founding. Hana pushed through the crowd, Taemin close behind her. But before they could reach her father, the lights went out. Explosions rocked the hall. Not from the human servants, but from other sources. Planned charges that Hyunwoo had placed throughout the building. He was accelerating his plan, creating the chaos he needed. In the darkness and confusion, Hana heard her father's voice calling out orders. She heard screams and the sounds of combat. Then she felt a hand grab her arm. "Come, princess," Hyunwoo's voice said in her ear. "Time for you to die heroically." He dragged her toward one of the side exits. Hana struggled, but he was stronger than her. Then Hyunwoo gasped and released her. Taemin had caught up, his blade pressed against the general's back. "Let her go," Taemin said quietly. Hyunwoo spun, faster than Taemin expected, his own blade drawn. The 2 weapons met with a sound like thunder. They fought in the darkness, lit only by emergency lights and the glow from fires started by the explosions. Hyunwoo was a trained warrior, skilled in Veltharian combat arts that had been perfected over thousands of years. He was stronger, his reach longer, his armor better. But Taemin had something Hyunwoo lacked. He had rage. Not the hot, blinding rage that made people stupid. The cold, patient rage that had kept him alive through 17 battles. The rage that made him willing to sacrifice anything to win. Their blades met again and again. Taemin's arms screamed with the impact of blocking Hyunwoo's powerful strikes. He knew he could not win a straight fight, so he stopped trying to. He fought dirty. He used every trick he had learned in a lifetime of combat. He threw debris to distract. He feinted and rolled. He targeted joints and weak points in armor. He bit and clawed when weapons were useless. It was not honorable. It was not pretty. But it was effective. Hyunwoo, trained in formal combat, did not know how to respond to someone who fought without rules. He had never faced an enemy who would do literally anything to survive. The fight moved through the destroyed hall. Around them, palace guards were finally restoring order, putting out fires and securing the area. But Taemin and Hyunwoo were locked in their own battle, neither willing to yield. Then Taemin saw his opening. Hyunwoo overextended on a strike, his confidence making him careless. Taemin dropped his blade and dove forward inside the general's reach. His hands found Hyunwoo's throat. They fell together, rolling across broken debris. Taemin held on, his fingers squeezing with desperate strength. Hyunwoo tried to throw him off, but Taemin locked his legs around the larger alien's body and held tight. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," Taemin whispered. "That was your mistake. You gave me time to remember why I fight." Hyunwoo's struggles weakened. His face turned dark. Just before he lost consciousness, Taemin released him and rolled away. The general lay on the ground, gasping for air but alive. Taemin stood slowly. Every muscle in his body ached. Blood ran from a dozen cuts. His right arm hung at an odd angle, probably broken. But he had won. Emperor Daesung emerged from the shadows, surrounded by his personal guard. He looked at the destruction. He looked at his unconscious general. He looked at Taemin standing over his defeated enemy. "Explain," the emperor commanded. Hana stepped forward. "Father, General Hyunwoo planned all of this. He armed the human servants. He planted the explosives. He tried to kill me. Also, he could blame humans and take your throne. This is a serious accusation, daughter." "I can prove it," Taemin said. His voice was rough with pain and exhaustion. The general kept records. He thought he was too clever to be caught. Check his private chambers. Check his communications. The emperor gestured and guards moved to obey. While they waited, medical personnel arrived to treat the wounded. A doctor approached Taemin, but he waved them away. "Help the others first," he said. 20 minutes later, the guards returned with data pads filled with evidence. Communications between Hyunwoo and his agents. Plans for the attack. Schemes to eliminate rivals. Everything Taemin had said was true. Emperor Daesung's face grew dark with rage. "Take him to the cells. He will face trial for treason." Guards dragged the semi-conscious Hyunwoo away. The emperor turned to Taemin. For a long moment he studied the human who had saved his life and his daughter, the human he had chosen as a trophy, the human his daughter had begged him not to take. "It seems," Daesung said slowly, "that my daughter was wiser than I knew. You are no pet, human. You are a warrior." "I am a soldier without a war," Taemin corrected. "Without a home. Without a people to protect." "Perhaps that can change," the emperor said. Taemin met his eyes. "Nothing can change what your empire did to Earth." "No," Daesung agreed. "But perhaps something can be built from the ashes." Before Taemin could respond, exhaustion finally overcame him. He had pushed his body beyond its limits. The world spun and he felt himself falling. Hana caught him before he hit the ground. "I have you," she said softly. "You saved us all. Now let us help you." As Taemin's consciousness faded, he heard the emperor giving orders. Medical care for the human guard, investigations into the conspiracy, changes that would ripple throughout the empire, and for the first time since Earth had fallen, Taemin dared to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, there might be a future worth surviving for. Taemin woke in a medical ward, sunlight streaming through large windows. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Then the pain hit him, reminding him that everything was real. His body was covered in bandages, his right arm was in a cast, but he was alive. "You are finally awake," a voice said. He turned his head carefully. Hana sat in a chair beside his bed. She looked tired, as if she had not slept in days. "How long?" he asked, his throat dry. 3 days. The doctor said you pushed your body to its absolute limit. They were not sure you would wake up. She poured water into a cup and helped him drink. How do you feel? Like I fought a Veltharian general and barely won. A small smile crossed her face. That is because you did. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Taimin asked the question that had been weighing on him. What happened after I fell? Hana's expression became serious. Everything. The investigation confirmed everything you said. General Hyunwoo had been planning this for months. He had agents throughout the palace, human servants he had manipulated, and even some Veltharian nobles working with him. Where is he now? In prison, awaiting trial. He will be exiled at minimum, possibly executed. The evidence against him is overwhelming. And the human servants, Misun and the others? They are alive, Hana said carefully. My father was merciful. He recognized that they were manipulated, that their actions came from justified rage against what was done to their world. They have been pardoned, but they remain under watch. Taemin nodded slowly. It was better than he had expected. And Earth? What about the rest of humanity? Hana stood and walked to the window. That is the larger question, is it not? My father called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. He presented evidence of Hyunwoo's conspiracy and made a proposal. What kind of proposal? She turned to face him. He proposed that Earth be granted semi-autonomous status within the Empire, that humans be recognized as full citizens with rights and protections, that reparations be paid for the damage done during the war. Taemin stared at her in disbelief. Why would he do that? Because you showed him something he had forgotten. That honor and strength are not the same thing. That mercy can be a form of power, and because, she added quietly, his daughter convinced him it was the right thing to do. The council will never accept it. They already have. It took days of negotiation, but they voted in favor. Earth is free, Taemin. Not completely independent, but no longer a conquered world. Your people have a voice now. Taemin felt emotions he had buried for months rising to the surface. He turned his face away, not wanting her to see the tears that threatened to fall. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because my father wants to offer you a position. Earth needs an ambassador. Someone who can represent human interest to the Galactic Council. Someone who understands both worlds. He wants you. Me? Taemin laughed bitterly. I am a soldier. I know how to fight and kill, not how to negotiate and compromise. You are more than you believe, Hana said firmly. You showed wisdom in stopping the assassination. You showed restraint in sparing Hyunwoo's life when you could have killed him. You showed compassion in saving a small creature in a garden. You are exactly what Earth needs. I need time to think. Of course, but do not take too long. The formal signing of the treaty is in 1 week. We need an answer before then. She moved toward the door, then paused. Taemin, I want you to know something. When I first saw you in that grand hall in chains, I was terrified. Not of what you were, but of what you represented. I saw a man who had every reason to hate us, to want revenge. I knew that given the chance, you could destroy everything. I could have, Taemin admitted. But you chose not to. When the collar came off, when you were finally free, you did not seek revenge. You sought justice. That is the difference between a warrior and a murderer. That is why I trust you. After she left, Taemin lay in bed thinking about her words, thinking about Earth, thinking about the future. The next few days passed slowly. Taemin recovered his strength. Doctors came and went, amazed at how quickly his body healed. They said humans had remarkable regenerative abilities, another adaptation from their violent evolutionary history. Misun and the other human servants visited him. They apologized for calling him a collaborator. They thanked him for saving their lives. What will you do now? Taemin asked them. Some of us want to return to Earth, Misun said, to help rebuild. Others have decided to stay here, to work for real change from within the Empire. We have a choice now. That is more than we had before. On the 5th day, Emperor Daesung himself came to the medical ward. His guards waited outside while he spoke with Tai Min alone. "I owe you an apology," the Emperor said without preamble. "I treated you as a trophy, as a symbol of my empire's dominance. I was wrong." "Yes," Tai Min said simply. "You were." Daesung smiled slightly. "My daughter said you would not make this easy. She was right, as usual. Human, I cannot undo what was done to your world. I cannot bring back your sister or the millions who died, but I can try to build something better. I can try to ensure that the future is different from the past." Pretty words from a conqueror, not a conqueror anymore. A partner, if you will allow it. Earth needs a voice in the Galactic Council. Will you be that voice? Taemin was quiet for a long time. He thought about Jiwoo, who would never teach children. He thought about Seoul, reduced to rubble. He thought about all the humans who had died believing their sacrifice meant nothing. "I have conditions," he finally said. "Name them." "First, all humans currently in servitude throughout the Empire must be freed and given the choice to return to Earth or remain as free citizens. Second, the Empire will provide resources and technology to help rebuild Earth's infrastructure. Third, Earth will have full control over its own military and defense. And fourth," he met the Emperor's eyes, "you will make a public apology to the people of Earth. You will acknowledge what was done and take responsibility for it." Daesung's expression was unreadable. Then slowly, he nodded. "Agreed. All of it. I will make the apology at the treaty signing. Then I accept." The Emperor smiled. "My daughter will be pleased. She has grown quite fond of you, I think." "She is." "Remarkable," Taemin admitted carefully. "She is. And she sees something in you that few others could. Not a weapon to be feared, but a person to be respected. Perhaps even something more." Daesung stood to leave. "The universe is changing, human. Species that were enemies are becoming allies. Barriers that seemed permanent are falling. You and my daughter are part of that change." After he left, Taemin sat alone with his thoughts. Everything had changed so quickly. A month ago, he had been a defeated soldier, chained and enslaved. Now he was being offered a position that could shape the future of his entire species. It was terrifying. It was overwhelming. It was hope. The day of the treaty signing arrived. The Grand Hall had been repaired and was filled with representatives from across the Empire. Humans and Veltharians stood side by side, an impossible sight just weeks before. Taemin stood at the front, wearing new clothes that marked him as Earth's ambassador. The neural collar was gone forever, replaced with a simple pendant bearing Earth's symbol. Emperor Daesung addressed the assembly in a voice that carried throughout the hall. He spoke of mistakes and learning, of the need to build bridges instead of walls. And then, as promised, he apologized. "To the people of Earth I say this: we were wrong. We saw your world and coveted it. We saw your people and judged them as lesser. We brought war and death to your home. For this, I am truly sorry. No words can heal the wounds we caused, but I hope that actions can begin to build trust where none existed before." The hall was silent. Then, from among the human delegates, someone began to clap. Others joined. Soon the entire hall was filled with applause. The treaty was signed. Earth officially became a semi-autonomous member of the Galactic Empire, with full representation and rights. Afterward, there was a reception. Taemin found himself surrounded by diplomats and nobles, all wanting to speak with Earth's new ambassador. It was exhausting in a completely different way than combat had been. He escaped to a balcony overlooking Velthar's capital city. The three moons were rising, casting strange shadows across the alien landscape. "Hiding from your admirers?" Hana's voice asked. He turned to find her standing in the doorway wearing a dress that seemed to capture starlight. "I am not used to this," he admitted, talking and smiling and being diplomatic. "I prefer enemies I can see." "You will learn. You are adaptable. It is one of humanity's greatest strengths." She joined him at the railing. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the city. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I am thinking about how strange life is. A few months ago, I would have killed every Veltharian I could reach. Now I am trying to build peace with them. Do you regret it?" "No," he said after a moment. "Revenge would have been easier. But this might actually change things. This might give meaning to all the death and suffering." Hana reached out and took his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. A princess and a warrior, a Veltharian and a human. Former enemies becoming something new. "The universe is watching us," she said quietly.